Welcome again, everyone. My name is Karen Weeks, and on behalf of League of Women Voters of Sonoma County, I will be your moderator for this evening's program on the ins and outs of running for office. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political grassroots organization. We were founded over 100 years ago to help women understand their brand new rights as voters. To this day, we uphold our original mission to empower voters and defend democracy through voter education and advocacy. And contrary to our name, we welcome all genders. To learn more about us, please go to lwvsonoma.org. And I'd like to thank our sponsor, Locian. Over the past 15 years, Locian has transformed into an equity-focused, membership-driven organization, uniting community members, leaders, nonprofits, businesses, and government agencies to create the most diverse public convenings in Sonoma County and the Bay Area. Dedicated to building belonging, Locian hosts monthly dialogues focused on equity, inclusion, and the systemic barriers impacting marginalized communities. Recently, they launched their Bridge program. It's a first of its kind initiative in Sonoma County designed to prepare Latino and historically marginalized community members to serve on nonprofit boards and public commissions, increasing representation where decisions are made. We do have one change in our lineup tonight from our original publicity, and that is Gina Cuclis is subbing for Mary Watts. Thank you so much, Gina, for stepping in at the last minute. We really appreciate it. Tonight, our program consists of representatives from both cities and county. These are locally elected officials, not to be confused with politicians, and perhaps someone will say a little more about that. Our opening speaker is Ernesto Olivares, followed by a panel of 4 with Sonoma County Supervisor and Vice Chair Rebecca Hermosillo, Petaluma School Board Trustee Joanna Paun, Santa Rosa Mayor Mark Stapp, and Sonoma County School Board Chair Gina Cuclis. If you have questions during the presentations, please put them in the chat to me, Karen, and I will ask them towards the end of the program. And please note, we will not be using the raised hand feature, so I will be ignoring that, but it's not that I'm rude. And if we have time at the end, we will talk briefly about everyone's favorite topic, all the paperwork involved. Local government is one of the best ways to make a difference in your community, and we want to give you a realistic perspective about the process, challenges, and rewards. And there is no better way to do this than with our 5 panelists tonight. To start us off is Ernesto Olivares. Ernesto is a dedicated leader, consultant, and public safety expert with over 45 years of experience in community safety, law enforcement, and violence prevention. A retired police lieutenant, former Santa Rosa City Council member and mayor, and nonprofit executive, he has spent decades fostering collaboration between government agencies, law enforcement schools, healthcare systems, and community organizations to create safer, healthier neighborhoods. So now I'd like to turn this over to Ernesto and have him share his experience in running for office and any other words of wisdom he has for us tonight.
Thank you, Karen. And I think I may have some words of wisdom, but I think in starting my presentation today, I do want to start about my why, share with you my why I chose to run for local elected office. For me, I mean, as you know, people run for office for various reasons, primarily because they want to affect meaningful change in their communities. And yet others want to address specific concerns that they feel may have been overlooked. And there are some that see local elected office as a stepping stone to greater political ambitions and other leadership positions within the community. And we have some of those great leaders represented us today. For me, it was a desire to help make a meaningful change in our community. I wanted to continue my calling to public service. I moved to Santa Rosa in 1979 to work for the Santa Rosa Police Department. And as you can imagine, I learned a great deal about Santa Rosa during my nearly 30-year career. I saw big changes that occurred between the time I arrived and the time I retired in 2008. But early on in my career, I also found the value of focusing outside of the police department, meaning being out and engaged in the community. That involved participating with organizations, being on boards of local nonprofits. And later on in my career, I really had a great opportunity in that I was chosen to lead the city's new gang prevention and youth violence prevention efforts. And that also put me out in the community where I learned even more. So my daily interactions then as a police lieutenant working out of the Recreation and Parks Department was with traditionally, I mean, typically non-law enforcement agencies and community members. This was a lot of nonprofits, a lot of community-based organizations and others that were doing a lot of work for our community here in Santa Rosa. So it really opened my eyes to the real human impacts of things like homelessness, affordable housing, poverty, unemployment, mental health, and so many other issues. And if you recall, back in 2008, we were in the middle of the Great Recession. So we saw housing, the housing market collapse. We saw a rise in unemployment and significant budget cuts. So as I prepared to retire from law enforcement, I realized there was still a lot more that I could do to help Santa Rosa. And that's why I decided to run. So what I want to share with you are some of the challenges that I encountered when I made that decision back in 2007, actually, when I started that journey, and then maybe move into some of the rewards and opportunities that it presented as well. One of the biggest challenges I faced immediately was that back in 2008, we were still an at-large council, meaning we had 7 council members that represented the entire city of Santa Rosa. We didn't have districts. And at the time that I ran, there were 11 candidates, including several incumbents for 4 council seats. And again, that's not the same today as when we have district elections. But I also had to realize that my family was also running for council in a way, meaning that being out in the public eye and things that occurred were going to impact my family, both good and bad. And so that's something for people to really consider, is how things will impact your immediate family. Having worked for the police department for 30 years, I saw the good and the bad in the media related to the organization, the city, maybe even myself. So you kind of had to grow that thick skin, if you will. So this is just something to really keep in mind, and making sure that you have a conversation with those close to you about that decision to run for office. Then there's also having to work with strangers, really having to identify a campaign consultant and some advisors, my kitchen cabinet, people to work with. So there was that development of trust, the willingness to take risk, facing the challenges and being transparent, because at the end, I also had to be concerned about people looking into my closet, right? What's in your closet? So, again, trying to mitigate surprises. And of course, it's also being ready to respond to criticism and attacks that will occur, and you see them occur during campaigns. The other thing that it wasn't quite a challenge for me, but just something to recognize, and that is the name recognition. My 30 years in law enforcement helped me. My engagement in the community helped. My nonprofit work, there's a lot of things that helped me in that area. But the other challenge is the endorsements. And again, thinking back to 2008 and the Great Recession, getting those endorsements, getting out to walk and getting those volunteers, that took a lot of effort as well. And there's lots of interviews. There's a lot of time spent dealing with and having conversations with special interest groups, including business, environmental, housing, land use, social justice, and so many others. But it was important to meet with everybody that I could, because regardless of whether they supported me or elected me, I was going to be working with these folks if I was elected after taking office. The biggest challenge for me, asking for money. That's my greatest weakness. And for me, I think it's part of my family background. It's just not something that we typically did. Being immigrants, my father was a proud man, and he didn't really like to ask for help unless he absolutely needed to. So that was a kind of a little drawback for me. And then, of course, my law enforcement career and dealing with ethical standards, it just wasn't something that I typically did, was ask people for money. And then, of course, I mentioned the Great Recession, which also greatly impacted the ability for people to support my campaign. But there's one more thing that I think I will mention, and that is, for me, it was ignoring yet thinking about my race. A Latino had never been elected to the Santa Rosa City Council. So that's something that I had to consider. It would be nice to be elected as the first Latino, but that's not why I was running. I think my experience, my qualifications, and what I could contribute were paramount for me. And so that's something that I had to consider, but I didn't want that to be a driving force in my campaign. The other thing was national issues and things that happen at the national level all the time. For me, it was Occupy. If you remember the Occupy movement back in the 2000s, and for me, it was dealing with a mass of people storming the city council chambers and dealing with safety issues. We've dealt with since then the George Floyd murder. There's so many issues that will happen at the local level unexpectedly that suddenly impact you as a council member. And probably the other big negative during my term in office was Zoom, what we're doing today. That was really difficult, not being out there, engaging with community members and having to conduct meetings on Zoom. But you know what? The rewards and opportunities, they're great. I mean, for me, just getting elected was like, wow, I never thought that could happen. Not something I ever dreamed of early on. But I was excited about it. And Karen touched on local elected officials versus politicians. That's something that I really believe in. We serve the entire community, not a party. The greatest ability for citizens to get involved is at the local level. You have access to your elected officials. You're able to participate. You're able to get involved with boards, commissions, or other types of groups to help your community, and that's big. And then the other thing that, as far as a reward and opportunity, was tackling big issues. We talked about the recession, but and that was tough. It was tough dealing with making difficult budget cuts, laying off employees, many of who were my and still are my extended family, having been with the city since 1979. And that was big. That was difficult to do, but again, very important work. But really working with my colleagues, council groups, and others to really focus on core services and really getting us through that recession. And of course, there's interacting with other city councils in Sonoma County, the Board of Supervisors, and others around the state too, to tackle big issues. A big thing for me too was the annexation of Roseland being a big part of that, something that was long coming, but I was happy to be on the council when that happened. And of course, continuing my violence prevention work locally and nationally. And the other thing to keep in mind is that you get elected for a 4-year term. And we need to be cautious about coming in and thinking that we're going to make a lot of big changes in 4 years. Sometimes all we can do is continue to advance something and move things forward, because sometimes change happens, doesn't happen for a long time. And I think Rosen is a good example of that. But the coolest thing though about being on the city council was being elected the same year that Barack Obama was elected president. For me, that was pretty cool. Him being the first African American, me being the first Latino council member, and later being the first Latino mayor for the city of Santa Rosa. I want to wrap up with and giving you a list of the things that you're going to need for public office. And here you go. So you don't have to write it down because it's being recorded. A campaign consultant, AKA your political therapist, a kitchen cabinet, and this is a trusted inner circle, not the ones from your poker night or the ones in your book club. Good walking shoes, because doorbells don't ring themselves. A thick skin, thicker than a bowl of oatmeal left out overnight. The shameless ability to ask for money, and yes, you will be begging for money, and no, it won't feel comfortable. Mastering the art of smiling while disagreeing, because someone will accuse you of personally ruining everything from parking to the weather, and you must nod sympathetically. Stamina for endless meetings. Think about surviving a 3-hour session about zoning permits for chicken coops. The heart of a public servant and the patience of a kindergarten teacher. Remember, people won't always be kind, and some won't even be logical. Smile, wave, remember why you're doing this, to serve, not to snipe. Thank you.
Very good, Ernesto. Thank you so much. And if you could please remember to put any questions in the chat and direct them to me, that would be great. So now I'd like to introduce each of our panelists. Rebecca Hermosillo is the Vice Chair of the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors. Rebecca was sworn in this last January as our newest Sonoma County Supervisor representing the 1st District. She is the first Latina elected to the board and won her election in the March 2024 primary with almost 80% of the vote. Prior to being elected, Rebecca worked for Congressperson Mike Thompson for a number of years. Our second panelist is Joanna Paun. Joanna was elected to the Petaluma City School Board in 2018. She became the first Black city official in Petaluma history. She serves as trustee for Area 5. In 2022, she was named the California School Board Member of the Year, and in 2023 was the Assembly District 12 Woman of the Year. And she currently works as a foster and homeless youth education coordinator for the Sonoma County Office of Education. Our next one up is Mark Stapp. Mark was elected as council member in District 2 in Santa Rosa in 2022. And in December of 2024, his council colleagues selected him as mayor for the 2-year term. Mark is also the Senior Director for Corporate and Foundation Relations at Sonoma State University. He earned a BA from Williams College in Massachusetts and a PhD from the University of Chicago. And last but not least is Gina Cuclis. Gina is the Area 1 trustee on the Sonoma County Board of Education, the governing body of the Sonoma County Office of Education, representing Sonoma Valley, Oakmont, and Rincon and Bennett Valleys in Santa Rosa. She was first elected to the Sonoma County Board of Education in 2012. And I don't think I mentioned that earlier, but I believe she is currently the chair of the Sonoma County Board of Education. So how we're going to handle the questions that we have prepared is we will rotate among the panelists. So the first question will go to Rebecca first. And that is, please describe your role, including how it differs city to county or county to city.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's great to be here, first of all. There is a difference between the city and county in that the county handles the sheriff's department, whereas the city handles the police department. The county handles the administration of the courts, the jails, property records. So when you get your tax bill, that's us. I apologize in advance. Elections, which is going to be really vital if and when you decide on running. Elections, voter registration, human services. When you think of what does the community need in their time of need, it's generally a county provided services, CalFresh, Medi-Cal. So that is kind of the difference in at the county level, what we administer versus the city. So the city, I love it when someone lives in the city limits and they're like, my roads, because we handle roads too. But if it's in the city limits, I'm like, please call Mark Stapp. Let me give you his phone number. So there's different infrastructure both for the county and the city, depending on the county boundaries, and it really fluctuates on where you live. I am in the city of Sonoma, so I have a little bit of the city of Santa Rosa, but I have all of the city of Sonoma that I represent. And so my district is from the San Pablo Bay, basically 37, all the way up to Santa Rosa, Mark West, the east side of Santa Rosa. So I work with my colleagues in the Santa Rosa City Council and at the Sonoma Valley, City of Sonoma Council. Is that helpful?
Thank you so much. And the same question for Joanna. And if anybody wants me to repeat questions, just let me know.
Yeah, so in Petaluma, there are 9 school districts. So Petaluma City Schools is the largest district in Petaluma. And I should back up and say we have 9 school districts in Petaluma. That's not even including the independent charter. But our school board really only governs the Petaluma City School District. And so in terms of how we differ from the city or the county, I mean, again, we're just in the city of Petaluma, just our district. A lot of times we will get questions about the streets, like Rebecca was saying, outside of certain schools. I know I had issues with some of the streets around my kids' elementary school, which is in a different district than Petaluma. And so I was going to the city. And so a lot of times, just because we happen to be in the city, we don't have control over everything that's even around our school, just our own property. So there are certain things that are managed by the city or the county, even within our districts. I hope that answers that question for you.
Thank you. Mark, do you want to answer this?
I think I know by now. I'll take a crack at it. Karen,
Thank
thanks
you,
for the
sir.
chance to be here. And Ernesto summed up a lot of this. But perhaps the most important thing to understand as you're thinking about running for any of these positions is that you are required to say snarky things if you're running for a city position about the county. You're required to talk about how the county doesn't understand, they don't give you enough money, and you do this on during every social occasion. And if you're a county level official, you need to talk about how the city is small-minded, stuck in its ways, not doing things efficiently. And this goes on for years and years. And if you're running for a school board position, whether it's at the county level or at a school district level, these are probably the most important positions, the hardest working positions that we have in the county right now, you need to commiserate with them. You need to express that you understand how difficult those roles are, especially right now. So thank heavens to anybody who's putting their names forward to a school board position at a district level or at the county level. But back to the main question, as Rebecca underlined, there are some obvious differences between the city and the county. At the city level, it's all the nuts and bolts stuff that affect your quality of life. It's roads, it's public safety, fire and police, it's your water services, it's economic development for the community. And I think most people intuitively realize this. What I think maybe people who are running for elected office don't necessarily realize as quickly is how intertwined all of our organizations are. So Ernesto probably had the best example when he talked about the Violence Prevention Partnership that the city of Santa Rosa is proud to host, but which has several county departments there. It has several school districts there, including SCO and local school districts, lots of nonprofits. And so the city, it's an organization that brings together roughly 30 or so organizations, public and nonprofit and private, to try to deal with issues around youth violence. And I mention that just because that's a role that the city can play pretty effectively, is as a convener. And another area where we're working closely with the schools in the city of Santa Rosa is obviously around school safety issues like the school resource officers. That's another place where the city, perhaps even more so than the county, although the county is certainly involved, we can be a convener of different groups and different organizations to try to solve a problem that's hitting home. It's a basic quality of life issue for our citizens. As a final point, it's especially for those individuals thinking about running for public office, it's important to underline the differences to a certain extent in lifestyle for the elected position for these different elected positions. A city council position anywhere in our county, and certainly a school board or a SCO position, is essentially a volunteer position. There might be a little bit of a stipend. There certainly is for the Santa Rosa City Council in terms of there's a little bit of financial remuneration. But it's certainly not a full-time job in any of these positions. You're really doing it for the love. At the county level in Sonoma County, that is a full-time position with staff. It's a different kind of enterprise there. And I thought I'd underline that again for individuals who are looking at these different levels, just to keep that in mind as you try to figure out how you would fit in an elected position with your daily life. And I'll leave it there. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Bar. So same question for Gina.
Yes, well, thank you very much. And I'm happy to have replaced Mary Watts in this event this evening. So the County Office of Education is a body that if you work in a school district, if you're a teacher, you know who we are and what we do. But for the average public, no, we don't receive the same kind of attention. But until somebody wants to complain to me about their school district, so this is the big difference. What the County Office of Education does, we're a partner to districts. We provide services. We help them to get things done, you should say. And then we also operate our own programs, particularly around alternative education. We have a school, Rosa Academy in Santa Rosa, Headwaters Academy in Petaluma. We are educating our most vulnerable students, the ones who are expelled, placed by the courts, maybe some other reasons they come to us. We have a teen parent program at Rosa. And we also provide the education at the juvenile hall. So as a County Board of Education member, I'm the school board. My colleagues and I, we're the school board for those programs. Now, unlike a school district board, they hire their superintendent and then give the superintendent direction. County Office of Education, the county superintendent is elected and the County Board of Education is elected. So we all have to really work at getting along and being on the same page, because we can't hire or fire, but we can cause a lot of problems if we aren't getting along. So I bring this up because within the realm of County Office of Education, the state governance is a big deal. It's always a big deal in local offices, but it creates unique challenges at County Office of Education. Now, you're really lucky in this county is we have a board and a superintendent, or former superintendent, current superintendent. We all get along. We really share a vision. So that's the big thing. People often, when they're upset with the school district, think we can do something. School districts are autonomous. We can't tell them what to do. We can't force them to do anything. Sometimes the superintendent has a role of making suggestions. Yes, the superintendent does have, by the Ed Code, the responsibility of reviewing school districts' budgets. They must present it. The superintendent designees look at it, and the superintendent may say to the school district, oh my gosh, you have the budget for 3 years. You know, you're going to be in the red in 3 years with this budget. You're going to have to make cuts. You might give that feedback, but you don't tell them how to cut or what to cut. That strictly lies with the board. That is, unless you have a school board that doesn't do what they're supposed to do. And then there's a whole series of things that happens with the county and the State Department of Education. So county offices of education are really unique, you know, because California is so big. County Office of Education do what in some states the state would do in terms of services to school districts.
Thank you so much. And so the second question, and we'll start with Joanna at this time. What was your path to running for office?
Yeah, so my path was not typical. It was 2018 when I was first elected. There were 7 people running for 3 seats. And so basically I ran in response to the community wanting something different. There were just a couple of, I guess you would call them like hot button issues happening in Petaluma within Petaluma City Schools. And so people wanted, again, something different. There were some long-term incumbents. So people wanted change. They wanted more representations and voices, basically like the voices that I needed when I was in school. I was raised by a single mother, 3 kids, low income, been working since I was 12 years old to work my way through school and just wanting to create more access and opportunities, more educational opportunities for students like myself or in similar situations. And so originally I was with a group of people that was recruiting potential candidates. And then I ended up being one of the candidates. I was asked multiple times if I wanted to run. It was just no, no, no. And then after like 3 months, finally I was like, sure, why not? And so I went down to City Hall like 2 days before the deadline and filed. And I had no idea what I was getting into. And I just kept doing one thing after another, not really knowing that, like Ernesto was saying, have a kitchen cabinet. I didn't have that. I had my husband and my 4 kids, walked them all over town, buying lots of ice cream that summer just to like bribe them to keep going, and just enlisting my friends. And then at the same time, there was also a contested at-large city council election happening as well. So then a lot of us were working together on our campaign. So when they were walking, I gave them my materials and vice versa. So that was really my path to running. I just did it.
Thank you. So Mark, you're up.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, I work at Sonoma State University. And I started working there in 2015, and I work in the advancement office, which means that I'm externally facing. And I was getting involved with some of the government relations issues in the county. And I liked the policy work. I had done it on a couple of occasions earlier in my career. And so when I had the chance to get more deeply involved at the county level and at the city level, I discovered I really liked it. And I started to at least think about becoming a bit more engaged. And I had the good fortune to serve on a couple of city boards, which was a great way for me to get to dip my toe in the water of city government work. I served on the Measure O Oversight Committee, which looks at fire, police, and violence prevention funding. And I served on the Design Review Committee. And I enjoyed both of those experiences. And then a seat on the city council opened up. And I had a number of people nudge me to say, hey, Mark, think about doing this. And with you, Karen, being one of them, of course. But it hadn't really been on my radar screen. I hadn't, like Joanna was describing, I hadn't thought about this as a path for myself. But as my wife and I talked about it, we thought maybe this was the way for us to give back. Because again, I knew I liked the work. I was familiar with it because of my experience at Sonoma State and a few other professional areas. So we decided to throw our hat in the ring and get involved. I think Ernesto mentioned that for him, the Occupy movement and some of the social upheaval around the Occupy movement, around George Floyd, around COVID protests, as I think we're all aware, it has been an interesting last decade or so on a number of fronts. That was also a factor for me, with a special mention of the fires. After 2017, to see the effect on our community, I really wanted to lean in and do more and be involved in some way. I felt helpless during some of that time. And so that was a key motivation for me to get involved with some of the city boards. And then eventually, as the opportunity arose, to throw my hat in the ring for city council.
Thank you. Gina.
Well, I didn't find the office, it found me in the form of a district superintendent who reached out to me and asked me to run. It was a Sonoma Valley superintendent of schools at the time. This was in 2012. And I got a message from her. I can't remember now, it was Facebook or an email. It said, Gina, the county superintendent and I were talking. I have an idea I want to run by you. Give me a call. Okay. And I'd known her for years before okay. Hey, man, what's up? Run for the County Board of Education. You'd be really good. I'm like, what's going on? I was being asked to run against an incumbent, and I personally knew him. We served together on the Democratic Central Committee. We were very friendly, but you could say we had my race was our own version of what we saw on the national scene last year. We're at about an 80-year-old running for office. That's what I was running against, an 80-year-old. who really was no longer really had what it took to give it the energy and the attention. But he was a retired teacher and counselor, and voters love putting retired teachers on school boards. So the vision was it was really going to take somebody was pretty well known in my Sonoma Valley community at the time, was kind of younger, I'm much older now. It's been over 12 years, but then I was still a working age person. And so what I said then at the time, I said, well, okay, let me look into this more. Let me think about it. Luann's a very hard person to say no to, but I said, let me look into it. And I did 3 things. Reached out to the county superintendent, Dr. Steve Harrington was superintendent then, sat down, had a nice meeting with him to find out what the needs were, what was going on, what SCO was doing. I attended the next scheduled County Board of Education meeting to watch the meeting, see what they did, see how they worked together. And after that, matter of fact, I had not been at every SCO board meeting since, but as a candidate, I was going to the meetings. And I reached out and met with the incumbent that I was asked to run against. And I was totally honest with him. I told him I was asked to run. I didn't tell him who and why. And I naively thought that maybe I could talk him out of running. And I said, why don't we work together? You help transition. I know you still really care about the kids and you care. Well, no, that wasn't going to happen. He just said to me, okay, bring it. So then I really felt called to action, and besides, along the way, Ernesto mentioned about your why, because that was my first question to myself. When I was being asked to run, I had to think about, how do I fit here? What can I do? Why would I run? And as I learned more how SCOs serve what I call our most vulnerable in the county, that really spoke to me. And I really felt like our students there weren't being well served by somebody who really wasn't giving it the attention. So then I felt like, yeah, I am needed here. It was like a calling that made me feel like I'm needed. And so then my campaign was real. I could talk a little bit about it later. It was just then I just called Luann back. Okay, I'll do this. Then I started reaching out to school board members, starting in Sonoma Valley. I already knew most of them, to start getting endorsements from people who sat on school boards. So that's how I got in this position.
Thank you. Rebecca.
Like Gina, it found me in a way. I never thought that I would run for public office. I was happy being the person behind the scenes to find solutions, get things done, respond quickly, check emails after hours. Somebody needed something, I was going to connect them. And I never thought that it would be me on this end. It just so happened that throughout my tenure with Congressman Thompson, almost 12 years, folks had asked me to run. It was just never the right time. I was in college, my dad was sick, a variety of things. And I never wanted to run it against an incumbent. Fast forward to 2017, we were all impacted by the fires. I saw the needs of the community. I had hopes for something more for our community. And we didn't quite get it. It was hard. I understand. Our current supervisor was impacted by the fires. And sometimes as elected officials, you have to pick yourself up from the bootstraps, get over your own, not get over, because that sounds so callous, but like move past the impacts that you're facing to help your community. And I saw where there was a need in our high priority community in the district, and I had hoped for more. And that didn't happen. And fast forward to many years, Supervisor Gorin had come to me. I thought she was going to be upset. She asked for coffee. I thought she was going to be upset. I was trying to poach her staff, and it wasn't the case. She wanted to poach me and asked me to run for her seat. And I didn't know that was the way the coffee meeting was going to go. And I was like, let me get back to you. So I had to do a gut check for myself. I had to do a gut check for my family because, like Ernesto said, like your family faces the impacts. And then I had to check in with my then boss, Congressman Thompson. He is my marker, like right, wrong, like really, he is the best mentor. If y'all don't have a Mike Thompson in your life, find one. And we talked about it and it was in the right time. So he thought I would do a good job. I knew I would do a good job for the district. And here we are. Supervisor Gorin was not going to run for reelection. She asked me to run. I started plotting kind of what that would look like. And it took a lot of work because I was still working full time for the congressman. I was still running his office. I still had a staff. And I laid the groundwork so that I could run an effective race. And so it was a little convoluted, and I never thought that I would be in this position that I'm in now. You have to think of kind of my history, right? It was like I had my own internal record that I was not good enough. I was a young mom. I had young kids that I had to support. I dropped out of high school. Like, who does that? And then I set markers and goals for my own internal self, like get my GED, get my bachelor's. And then I internally felt like I was ready. So it was the best of all worlds, and it found me.
Thank you so much. So the next question will start with Mark, and it is, what challenges did you encounter when running?
One of the biggest ones for me is the one that Gina mentioned, which was finding your why, being very clear in my own head about why I was deciding to run, and then also thinking through why I felt like I was the best positioned person to run. That took some soul searching for a while, but it's definitely time well spent for those of you who are thinking about running, because as Gina or Ernesto underlined, it's hard to be successful. It's hard to really make a go of it unless you're crystal clear about why you're in the race. Along with that, is it's different talking about politics in a social setting with your friends as opposed to being in front of the room talking about policy positions that matter in people's lives. And so that was another big, as I started to campaign, once I'd made the decision to go forward and be part of the race, I quickly realized that the 10-second snippets I had in my head about a particular position was great for when you were sitting around over drinks with friends. But when you're in front of a room full of people, those were not sufficient. And so you have to learn the policy at a much greater level. And to the extent that you're able to start doing that even now before your campaign is underway, as you're thinking about running, you're really evaluating the issues that are most concerning to you and your positions on those. That's helpful. A third challenge, I would say, or maybe not challenge so much as a need. Being in running for elected office or being in elected office is interesting in that it's often hard to find people who are very honest and blunt with you. That is the role of a good campaign consultant, which Ernesto managed earlier. Which Ernesto mentioned earlier, rather. It's also the job of your kitchen cabinet, which Ernesto mentioned. You need to have people around you that will tell you that you're doing things that are wrong, that you're giving answers that are inaccurate, that you're not working hard enough, that you're not there on the campaign trail, because I think a lot of candidates quickly discover that they don't necessarily, those kinds of voices don't necessarily emerge organically. People will tend to defer to you either as a candidate or as an elected official. And it's how a lot of candidates and elected officials get out too far over their skis. And then the final thing I'll mention, just because I did see it come up in the chat as well, is the fundraising aspect. Ernesto mentioned how this was challenging for him. I think I have to imagine that 80% of candidates mention this as being daunting as they're thinking about getting into the race, or daunting once they're actually an elected official. I have an unusual background in that I am a professional fundraiser for Sonoma State University, and so it comes a little bit more naturally for me to be having discussions about raising money. But frankly, when you're raising money for your own campaign, for what feels like yourself, it's still a little bit still a little awkward. To those of you that are having these concerns, I guess I would just mention two things to give you comfort. If you have a wide network of people who believe in what you're bringing to the race, these are probably people who've been nudging you to consider it or very supportive of your choice. Those people are also likely to want to support you once you're in the race. They're invested in you in some way. And when you're out there fundraising, it's critical to remember that no one's giving money to you. They're giving money to things that your campaign stands for. And always keeping that front and center as you're thinking about crafting your campaign, as you're thinking about running, and definitely as you're thinking about as you're asking people for support. It's always good. You've got to remember that it's not for you. It's about the good that your work can do for the community, whether it's the school board, the city, or the county. So I just wanted to throw that out there for folks who have that concern, because believe me, that's shared by almost every candidate and elected official.
Thank you. Gina?
Well, my biggest challenge, I just want to say about fundraising is a lot of school districts. We have a lot of small school districts in this county. City of Sonoma is a small city. My race, County Office of Education, we don't use consultants because these are low budget races. And I can give a plug at the end for if you're a Democratic woman, where you can go to get some training on how to run for office. But my biggest challenge was running for an office where voters really don't know what it is and what we do. And so I'm explaining about what it is, not just vote for me because I want to really make a difference for our most vulnerable kids. But it's like, what do we do? So I had this dual thing of explaining this as I'm talking to people. And then when I ran for re-election, I'm in my 4th term now. Just nobody challenged me last time, so my race was not on the ballot in November. But 2 previous times I had challengers, and their platforms were things that we don't do. The County Office of Education doesn't do. We don't go into school districts and create programs there and say, oh, hey, we're going to fund this for you, for example. So they were talking about things that we don't even do. And so that only muddies the waters. And it's not just my campaign. It's something we are always dealing with at the County Office of Education, our county superintendent, the county board, always explaining what we do in our role with school districts. So that really, for me, was my biggest challenge, when you have to have that kind of conversation and being in a forum too, and hearing my opponent saying things that I'm just like going, well, this is why I'm running based on what I am actually doing at the County Office of Education.
Great, thank you. Rebecca?
Biggest challenges? There is a few. First of all, when I was told by my consultant, that how much was needed to run for my race, I said, are you kidding? That's a quarter of a house. It's very expensive to run in some races. So raising the money, I had no problem asking for it. And when you ask for it, it's how people connect with you and how you deliver your message. And also your hope for the future is what they are buying into. So they're buying into you. They're buying into your message. They're buying into the trust in you and the trust in your vision for the future, the collective community. And so it is very interesting and challenging to ask for money on a campaign. For mine, it was $250,000. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you could do so much with that to help people, but here we are. That's what campaigns are about. So it was the raising money. And then it was the, after I had cleared the field, and my race is a little bit of an anomaly, and I could talk about that later. But after I had cleared the field, and I had won in March, right? March last year, and I didn't take office till January. It was 9 months of waiting. So I still had a job. I still had to feed my family. I still had to work for Congressman Thompson, but but I also needed to prepare myself for my future job. So that was meeting with department heads, understanding their priorities, their concerns in my free time from my full-time job so that I could be ready for office come January. The other challenge that I had was because I had a reputation working for Congressman Thompson's office, they had assumed that I had like the golden mat that was rolled out for me by him. Absolutely not. Like, he did not ask for any money for me. He did not ask for any endorsements for me. That was all work that I had to do on my own. I called all of my stakeholders, everybody that I wanted an endorsement from. I asked for everyone, like, their fundraising. It was not like, donate to Rebecca, she works in my office, and help her win. I really had to rely on my relationships in community and my experience and my character to like have people really buy into me. So there was a little bit of an anomaly. People like, oh, Mike Thompson helped you. Absolutely not. I got his endorsement and then I worked my tail off to get everything else. So I think those were some of my biggest challenges.
Thank you. Joanna?
I think my challenges, a few, not fully understanding the process because, like I said, I just kind of jumped in. I had never intended on ever running for public office. My older brother was always very into politics, so I thought it would be him. Ended up being me. So I didn't really understand like how to run a campaign. I did, and also the paperwork. This was actually an issue both times. So in 2018 and then in 2022 as well, just being told different things by like the registrar's office at the county versus the city clerk. And, and then also thinking about my prior experience, like, well, these are three different things. So just trying to figure those things out. Also, just the time. So I was a full-time school counselor at the time. I had 4 kids and a husband. And so just making time to get the platform together, to get a website done. Thankfully, again, people have talked about their friends and their relationships. One of my really good friends is a graphic designer. So she designed my graphics and then fit it. So it specifically be for like the poster and then for like business card sizes. So she took care of that. Also did the graphics for the website. I had another friend who built the website. She also took the pictures. But then I had to do all the content. And then also understanding like the banking. My husband is an accountant, so he was able to help me with that. Even now he helps with my Form 700. So I'm like, John, just help me with this. So just understanding all of those things, and again, just the time preparing for the panels, since it was a very contested election and there had not been one that's contested for a long time. I think we did like 7 panels in the course of like 3 months. But then also, lastly, I'll say the low expectations. When I would meet with people, they'd be like, here's my endorsement, here's my check, and you're probably not going to win because you're a first-time candidate and this is very contested. It's really hard to unseat incumbents. Well, all 3 of us, it ended up, we had like kind of like a slate. So all 3 of us actually unseated all of the long-term incumbents. But basically people just saying, just think of this as your introductory year, you know, you'll get them next time. But then I also used that to my advantage because I was like, wait, I actually worked in this school district. I know this school district. I understand what students need. I'm an educator myself. I have children in school. And so just not listening to low expectations. I mean, it's not the first in my life that I'd had low expectations thrown at me, but I also know how to navigate those and just stand on my own merits and my experience. And so that's what I did. So
Thank you. So the next question goes to Gina first. What has been the greatest reward so far during your time in office?
Well, every year at graduation time, that's my greatest reward. And when I see students who are getting a GED or getting a diploma who probably would not be completing high school if not for all the help and the more personalized attention they got at our alternative school program. That's my biggest reward.
Thank you. And then we'll go to Rebecca next on that question.
There's so many rewards.
That's good to hear.
I'll start with, I'm the first Latina supervisor for the County of Sonoma, reward 1. Reward 2, I was at my kickoff and it was a great event. And by the time I was done speaking, I had gone to like the wine station to get a glass of wine and they had closed it down, which is fine. And I look over and I see someone in the wine community that had sponsored the event. And I see them talking to a friend of mine who works in the fields. And that is the epitome of why I ran, about representation, inclusion, that his boss and him can be at the same event to support me, and everyone has access to me. The other win was literally just today. I was in budget workshops at the board, and it's my first budget workshop. I didn't know what to be prepared for. I make Mexican coffee every Tuesday to bring community to my colleagues and the staff and the community family, which has been a hit. That is another win. So just quickly covering that. And we're in the budget workshops and a farm worker from outside of the district talks and he says in Spanish, "I'm sorry for the bother, but," and then he lists everything that is happening in his life. And I asked the chair, Chair Hopkins, if I can address him after his comments. And it was important for me, and I could just get emotional. Like, I do not want him or anyone to think that it's a bother. I know what it takes to come and speak to a board of all English speaking elected officials to talk about their need, and it is so vital. And so I just told him in Spanish, don't say that you're a bother. Like, you are welcome here to tell us your needs. And so that today's win was super fresh, and hence why it's probably so emotional. Like, we are here to hear everyone, and for him to have a path that I understood without having to have earphones on to understand what his needs are was just huge. So there's lots of wins: the Mexican coffee, the representation, and no one is a bother when you speak in your language.
Thank you. Joanna?
Yeah, that was beautiful, Rebecca.
Hard to follow.
I would also say the greatest reward is just being that representation for students. We know that about 90% of the teachers in our county are white, but about 60% of our students are students of color. And so they don't see a lot of representation in their classrooms or even in school leadership. So then when I like come to their classrooms, and I love going to TK and kindergarten classes because they just want to like touch you and stuff. And I always have, like, inevitably there will be a child, Black child, brown child, Asian, just student of color that will like come up and literally like touch my skin and be like, "You look like me." And it's just not something that they see every day. And that is just so impactful. It's like, yes, and you will go to college, you're going to graduate from high school, you're going to have a career, you're going to do all these things, and you're going to be better than us, right? Because I want the next generation to be better than what we are. So just having that representation. And then also graduations. I know Gina mentioned graduations as well. And I mean, not only do I have my name on one of my kids' diplomas, and then also some of my kids' promotion certificates, but also not just like my own kids' graduations and being able to see their friends walk across the stage, but also going to our adult education graduation. So we run the only adult education in the county. And just, first of all, just being able to give that to the community is amazing. But then seeing people as young as like 19, and at one of our ceremonies, we had this couple and they're in their 70s and they're graduating from high school together. Like that is beautiful because we know that having that diploma just opens so many doors. So I'd say those are my greatest rewards.
Thank you. Mark?
Well, I can't be as moving as Rebecca and Joanna, but I'll restate essentially what I think a version of what they're talking about, which is that ultimately the work is the reward, in the sense of we're all here representing large bureaucracies that are not always the friendliest or the easiest. And I think all of us intuitively ran because we saw something. We saw that these organizations weren't connecting as well as they could with the community in some kind of capacity. And I think all of us, I think all good elected officials are in some way motivated by the idea that they can help the large bureaucracy do just a little bit better in how they're helping the community. And anytime we make a little bit of difference in that, whether it's helping with a constituent issue, finding a business license, getting a young person more involved with with the system in some way, or whether we push a policy issue forward that makes life just a little bit better for our communities, that is the reward. That's the thrill. In most cases, it goes unnoticed. It's something that only you know, or only your colleagues know, or only a small subset of the community knows. But the people who the work that goes into that, and the rarity the rarity of those kinds of successes makes it special. And so again, if you're thinking about running and you're evaluating whether this is the right path for you, think about the extent to which the work itself, the tedious, usually thankless work, whether you enjoy that and you find enough personal reward to go through, again, the tedious, laborious effort that goes into it. If the answer is yes, then you might really enjoy this work. But again, if the work itself is not enough of a reward, then think twice about putting your name forward, because I think ultimately that's at this level that we're talking about, that is the major payback.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask a question from the audience now, and this is for all five of you. So I'm kind of going off script, so sorry about that. And we'll start with Ernesto on this question. Can you talk about how to support younger people and people of color to run for office?
Well, for me, it's having the conversation. I still have the conversations. I have always enjoyed talking to young people. I was throughout my career, I was invited in to speak to children, and I loved speaking to children that were like me. And it was always amazing to see, especially the younger ones who would see you come into the classroom as the mayor, right? And the questions that they would ask. I mean, a kindergartner asked me, did you come in a limousine? I said, no, I didn't come in a limousine. I drove my own car. Yeah, but it helped me them understand. But also sharing my own personal story of being an immigrant and the things that I had to overcome as a young child, the things my parents had to overcome, but really to instill in them that hope and dream that they can do it too, right? And I tell them, you're going to be sitting in that seat one day. You can. So it's kind of talking about really dreaming big and not trying to get over some of these barriers and obstacles. And I still do it. I still interact with kids, and again, it's especially young people of color, and it's about. It's also about knowing their story, because I think that later on that contributes to their why, and it really encourages them to be more engaged with their parents in asking questions to help fill the gaps of their story, because sometimes we don't ask, especially in my experience. There are so many things I wish I would have asked my parents that I never had a chance to do so, and I wish I had. But it's just really trying to inspire and letting people know that you can do it too. You think about these offices, you think about these specially anointed, appointed people that are so special. We're just people. right? We're just people. I mean, it's another knucklehead, right? I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, anybody can do this if you have that drive and the will to do it and are really to do it for the right purposes.
Thank you. Gina?
Actually, running for school board is a great office for a young person to run for. We already have, I don't know, Joanne, if it's you've got in your school district, but a lot of district school boards already have a student board member on their board. You're not elected, you're usually appointed with however that's done, usually at the high school. And they get to give their input. But then, because they're close to them, you're a young person, you're close to having been in the public school system. You've got current knowledge at a level that a lot of parents will run for a school board. But when you've been the student, have gone through it, that is just a great perspective. And actually, my hunch from watching all these years is voters like that. You know, if you've been a student and can talk about it and have something or have a strong why around wanting to make the experience maybe as good or better than what you had. So I would encourage I love talking to people who are interested in running for office. I always ask why. Why are you thinking about, why do you want to do it? I might ask when I meet recently elected people, why do you run? And I want to bring that to that, because that has come up today. And I think that there's one important takeaway to take away is know your why when you are going to run for office.
Thank you. Mark?
Maybe I'll try a less popular answer to see if I get any traction here. Because it goes without saying that we want more people in general to run, and we certainly want more young people to be engaged. That's absolutely true. What I would offer is that before jumping into elected office, give either an appointed board position in the city or a nonprofit board position. Get some experience, especially if you're really on the younger end and you don't have significant professional experience. Because it's important to remember that all the organizations that we're talking about here are large, complicated organizations. You're stepping into HR issues, you're stepping into large budget issues, and you don't have to read the headlines very long in our community today to see that these complicated organizations they face challenges. And so you as a young people or people in general, they don't even have to be just people for whom this is new. It's helpful if they're prepared at some level, if they understand how boards work, if they have a sense for how complicated these organizations can be, so that when you're there on the dais making decisions, you've got some context. And again, I'll speak for the city level. We don't have enough people volunteer to serve on city boards. I'm out there hustling around trying to recruit people from all backgrounds to be on our bicycle and pedestrian safety board, to be on our arts committee, to be on our planning committee. Those are great ways to make a meaningful impact in your community, while getting your feet wet and determining whether elected office, at a city, say the size of Santa Rosa or any of the cities in Sonoma County, if that's the right path for you.
Thank you. Joanna?
Yeah, I could go either way about this. Like Gina's saying, yeah, go ahead, step in. You're young, you're close to the age of being in school. But then also like Mark, okay, well, why do you want to run? What do you want to accomplish? Is there another way to get there instead of making this 4-year commitment for free? Because there could be other routes they could take, or maybe it's about connecting them to who can help them make those changes. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to dissuade anyone, but also understand. I think a couple people said the why, because it is a big commitment.
Yeah, indeed. Rebecca?
Can you repeat the question? Is it encouraging people of color running?
Let me, how can you support younger people and people of color to run for office and support them when they are in office?
You need mentors in office. You need trusted allies in office, including your friends. You need to keep sane in some capacity. You need to have good people supporting you kind of along the way. And I am happy to be that resource. I can drop my cell phone in the I'm all about creating pathways to public service. The team that I hired on did not have public service experience except for one person. And it was intentional because everything that we do to help our community is teachable. And I want to create pathways to public service. So creating an internship program so that people from high school can come in and learn what supervisors do and how to govern at a county level. I did that when I was working for Congressman Thompson's office. When I first started, people, the interns that we had would answer phone calls and that was it. And I was like, that's crazy. I could do that. Like, this needs to be a teachable moment. And so I revamped kind of our intern program. And I want to do that at the county level. I'm just working through the county system to make that happen. So creating pathways to public service, be it at the county level, at the city level, to encourage people to run, because when you don't know what is available, you can't step up to help. And so making sure that we create those pathways is super important for me.
Thank you.
Karen, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that there was a second part of that question. Can I just add?
Oh, yes, of course you can. I'm sorry.
About the people of
it.
color running. I would love to see more people of color in elected offices. When my term is up next year, I have been trying to find a person of color. I don't know if we've ever had a Latino person on our school board. We need one because close to half of our students are of that demographic and we need that representation. I also think in terms of support, you have to have a strong support network because I did not face any racism while I was running, but then after I was elected, I definitely did. And so having the support of other Black local elected officials, I'm thinking about Jackie Elward, who actually knew long before we both were in office, and then the support of the NAACP, just people having your back and supporting you is just so valuable.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing? Sorry.
Never say sorry, Rebecca. Didn't you say that earlier?
Oh, shoot. I'm not apologizing. Here's the deal. When you're a person of color and you're in elected office, there is racism, there is microaggressions, and you have to learn how to navigate them and have them be teachable moments. I can tell you that when I was in DC at NACO and I was with my chief of staff, who is amazing, they all thought she was the supervisor. I'm like, actually, it's me. And so knowing that we face these challenges and we have to persevere. Even right now, I am still struggling in my own district to establish myself as a supervisor when people down the line want to kind of assert their position. And so just know that we are in positions of power and there will be conflict, and we have to stand firm and strong in our position to have these teachable moments of what is right and what is wrong and how to interact with elected officials.
And I would add to that, Rebecca, thank you for those comments, is that there's a lot of pride in being a person of color in elected office. Rebecca, you're a first as far as Latina with the board, but it's also hard because of some of the things that were mentioned. Even me early on, they said, well, he's just interested in Latino issues, right? We're not really thinking that there's other big issues that I care about. So that is a constant in having to deal with some of those questions. So it is hard. Don't think it's easy, and it does take courage. That's why I talked about that thick skin you have to develop too. It's hard. Don't think that it's an easy thing to do, but it is rewarding, and there is a lot of pride in being out there and taking that risk.
Mark?
Karen, can I just give a quick shout out to our other sponsor, Lo Cien? This is something that Lo Cien has done really well for how many years now? 15 years, something like that, in terms of filling the pipeline locally in nonprofits and in government boards, creating a pool of candidates. And now with the Bridge program, they're even more front and center in that area. And there are a couple of other organizations that do similar things. And so just a shout out to LoCN and to other organizations that are doing the training. Because back to my comments, I think that training is really important to get any candidate off to a good start, even when they're elected.
Yeah, and I don't know if we touched on it, Karen, but it's also how do we eliminate barriers for people to run for office, especially our younger generations. It's hard, and I think we talked about the time commitment that it takes to be on the council, school board, and others. It's not just a Tuesday night meeting. There's a lot that's required of you. I was fortunate to be retired and have the time to do it and to meet with people. But that's a big stressor for those who are younger, that have young families, have young children, and being away, it takes its toll. So you really have to look at that balance and really focusing on taking care of yourself and having somebody who's there or people who are there that are ready to listen when you need to throw up, because it's like I said, sometimes you end a meeting and you just can't wait to get out of there. But again, not to try to scare people away. That's not my intent. It's just the realities of being in a public office, because underline public, you're out in the public all the time.
Thank you. So we're going to go, and this question I would like all of 5 of you to answer, and it's just your final words of wisdom. What are they? So let's start with Joanna.
I'd say that running for office and holding office can be really difficult. So just making sure that your family's on board, and that you have supportive people, because things will get tough. There have been decisions that we have made that it felt like the whole town was against, even though I know that wasn't true, but just having that support system, knowing when to turn off social media as well.
Yeah.
But it's doable. And I just think about my experience. I just stepped into it and I just kept doing one thing after another. I had a lot of people that came around and supported me at one point. Someone was like, "Girl, you do not know what you're doing." I was like, "I know." She's like, "So I'm going to help you do X, Y, and Z. Just do everything I tell you to do for like a week and you'll be on track." And I was. So I think if you have people around you who really support you and believe in you, then they will help you. But the only way that things will change is if we get more people in office from different lived experiences and backgrounds.
Thank you. Gina?
Well, I've already emphasized it a couple times about know your why, but I also want to reiterate a couple comments that were made here or back them up about running for office is a family affair. And so my main campaign worker, who's been my husband of 41 years, fortunately also has techie skills, website, walk sheets. I had a good friend who also great door knocker. But it really is whether you're married or significant other, or if you're lucky enough to have, your own parents in town, but you really do it because it disrupts your routine. Particularly, you might, if you have children, you might have to have the other parent partner spend more evenings alone at home while you're campaigning. So it really is, you've got to have your partner on board. And I say this because I had an experience with a candidate I was supporting in a local office, and whose campaign petered out, and my husband said the wife wasn't on board. That was what he noticed. So that's really important, and to have those conversations with your family early. I see Ernesto smiling, so Rita is very experienced at this. And the other thing I just want to give a plug about a training program that I went through a number of years ago. Now it's partisan. It trains Democratic women to run for office, but for any office. The information is not partisan and what they teach you how to do. Quite a bit of time spent on fundraising, and that's Emerge California. And just Google, you'll find them. It's Emerge California. They've got programs all over, start in San Francisco, but they're all over the state. They are a great training ground, and then you become part of the Emerge Sisterhood. And when you run for office, they're very supportive. to you, not financially, but just you got a place to call for that support.
Thank you. Mark?
I think my colleagues have summed up any wisdom that I had. I'll offer 2 points. One, being in elected office in Sonoma County, I think is a particularly special experience because of how tight knit and how engaged this county is. We're unusual here in terms of our voting rates and in terms of the number of people who pay attention to local politics. So that's the great thing about it. As a new candidate, also know that's the challenge because you're stepping into an arena where a lot of people are paying attention and know the issues. And so I'll then offer my second piece of wisdom, such as it is, you get out of it what you put into it. This is absolutely a rewarding thing to do. I'm so glad that I threw my hat into the ring eventually. I've enjoyed every minute of it, but it's a lot of work. And if you don't put in that work, from what I can see, it's not nearly as rewarding. So go into it with with all of your passion and heart if you decide to do it.
Thank you. Rebecca?
I have a yes to all of the above, and then I have a little bit of a different perspective. I was around elected officials and politics and campaigns for 12 years, kind of before I took office. And so what I would give is make sure that you are ready. And that means, like, I had been asked several times before I actually ran to run, but I was not ready. I was not personally developed. There was a lot of, after my personal development, then kind of like home front and education. You have to make sure that you are ready and you are the right candidate, because Bob tells you and Karen tells you to run. That doesn't mean you are ready. So make sure you are internally ready and you are viable. You can be viable and work hard and you are driven for the right reason. I have seen too many candidates want to run for president because Bob told them to run. And so people have to do that gut check. They have to rely on their core friends to tell them the truth if they're ready or not. And if they are, then full steam ahead, guns blazing, get them in office. But it's really that internal gut check. I've seen too many races go sideways. And then we have bad elected officials.
Thank you. Ernesto?
Well, don't be afraid to run. I mean, we see a lot of stuff going on right now, a lot of anger, but sometimes it's just a lot of noise. At the end, you have to do what you think is right for the community, not just yourself. So it's that, why are you there? It's not about me. It's not about Mark. It's about the community that we're serving. We're public servants. And I think that is very important. Know that the day you first sit in that seat, you're not an expert on everything. You know, you come with your own history, your own knowledge, but there's a lot of other knowledge there today is with you and in the community and with the staff that is supporting you along the way as well. So there's a learning curve. Sure, truly there's a learning curve. And also be willing to have an open mind, because we all have our own opinions about things that go on around us, the way things should be. Suddenly everybody's an expert on ending homelessness or this or that. But especially going to a meeting where you're going to be making a decision, it's dangerous to come in with your mind already made up. So it's important that you come in with an open mind, because there will be times when you change your mind at the day, as I say, I never saw it that way. And you will vote a different way than you probably thought you were going to vote. So just always keep an open mind and be willing to listen to other perspectives to help you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate you spending the time with us tonight. And before we close, I want to mention that there is a current opening on the Santa Rosa School Board, and it's in Trustee Area 6, which is Southwest Santa Rosa, but west of Roseland. And the remaining trustees must appoint a trustee within 60 days. And it's anticipated that the application process will open next week. So if you are interested, please refer to the Santa Rosa City Schools website. And once again, I'd like to thank the panelists and our co-sponsor, Locienne, and a great shout out, Mark, to Locienne. And thank you once again to the volunteers behind the scenes for League of Women Voters. And if you're interested in the work that we do at League of Women Voters Sonoma County, please visit our website at lwvsonoma.org. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Good night.